Hi, I'm Jenny, and in today's video I'm going to cover the 3 major things you should be aware of before buying a Rolex Yacht-Master, so let's get started. The Rolex Yacht-Master is probably one of the most honest Rolex watches in the lineup and simultaneously one of the few Rolex watches that has been considered a sleeper, so basically an underrated watch that should be so much more popular than it actually is. It is a watch full of, at least what it seems like, contradictions, so I think it is about time that we talk about it. First, I want to touch on its backstory so you know where we are at with the Yacht-Master. Then we're going to do a quick detour for point 2 and check out how it works, because then we are going to bring it back with its sleeper situation and the major pitfall you should be aware of before buying a Yacht-Master. But before we dig into it, it is time to pay some bills and thank the sponsor of today's episode, CHRONEXT, who let me borrow the watches for this video. CHRONEXT is an international online pre-owned watch retailer with over 32 brands and 800 models, providing pickup locations and lounges all over the world for you. And if you want, you can use promo code Jenny when purchasing from CHRONEXT to get an extra discount. And just for transparency, there's no financial kickback for me, but you will get to save money on your next CHRONEXT purchase, and I will link everything for you in the description box down below. Right, so let's first start with a bit of backstory on the Yacht-Master, which is going to be important for you in order to understand the Yacht-Master and why it is what it is today. The first Yacht-Master was introduced in 1992, so it has been around for almost 3 decades. Though I couldn't find any official statement from Rolex, there's this story going around that Rolex initially planned to update the Submariner, but felt like it was a bit of a too drastic change to their golden boy, so they did decide to put their ideas into a new line, and voila, the Yacht-Master was born. And if you want to know more details on that story, I recommend the fantastic article from Jake on the rolexmagazine.com, which I will link for you down below. And so this first Yacht-Master came out in 2 sizes, a 40mm targeted to a male audience and a 29mm version for the ladies. It was entirely made from yellow gold with a white dial on both versions. Right out of the gate, you could tell that the Yacht-Master was never meant to be a tool watch, and I really like how Jake put it here. The Submariner was for the skipper of the boat or the yacht, and the Yacht-Master was for the millionaire who owns it. And so from there, Rolex did what they were always doing and steadily added more watches to the lineup, tweaking minor things step by step. Along the way, they came out with a 35mm version in 1994, as well as the addition of the 37mm in 2017, which you can see on my wrist right here, and a 42mm in 2019. The Yacht-Master also saw many materials being introduced in their line, like a rose gold, white gold version, for example, stainless steel models with a platinum bezel, or being the first Rolex to be released on a rubber strap, for example. And as of right now, Rolex is only producing the 37, 40 and 42mm versions, as well as the 44mm Yacht-Master 2, but that is a whole different story. Other sizes and variations are discontinued, but you will definitely be able to get lots of them pre-owned for a considerably decent price, which leads me directly to point number 2. Let's look at the 2 examples I have right here. There's the Rolex bezel, so basically a platinum bezel, bidirectional, that was sandblasted to get this matte look beneath the markings. The dial has a beautiful sunburst we know from other well-loved Submariners like the Bluesy or the discontinued Hulk. We've got the same Mercedes hands and the date at 3 with the trademark Cyclops lens. And I think it is safe to say that those who aren't that deep into Rolex would take a quick look at it and say that it might be just another Submariner, because the differences here are in the details. Like I mentioned, you got the Rolex bezel, something that is exclusive to the Yacht-Master line, but then there's also the colorful highlights on the lettering, as well as the second hand, and I mean, yeah, there's also the word Yacht-Master written on the dial. And I think the nicest difference here is the case. The best word to describe it would be curvy, I would say. You can see from almost every angle that this watch is way curvier than the Submariner, with its heavily curved lugs or the convex flanks on the case. It is as if they had merged together the case of a Datejust and a Submariner, and if that's not a win-win, I don't know what is. All that sits on an oyster bracelet with an easy link with polished metal links to top of the elegant look of the watch. It's this blend of so many of the popular Rolex tool watch features with elegant details from the dressier lines that makes the Yacht-Master so unbelievably casual yet elegant at the same time. It wears extremely comfortable, especially when you have smaller wrists, which is why this one gets all the IBWC stamps of approval for me. The thing that surprised me the most though here was the Yacht-Master 37 with its lug-to-lug of only, brace yourself, 43mm, which is 3mm less than my 36mm Datejust for comparison. Though the fixed link sends the actual length of the watch to a bit over 46.5mm, it still wears perfectly compact on my wrist, and the 904L steel and the Oyster bracelet feel as silky as usual. It feels very much like a bespoke Submariner in a way, because I mean, if you consider the discontinued models too, you get such a big variety of colors and sizes for that watch, which is rather unusual for a Rolex that isn't a Datejust. On the secondary market, a current Submariner date is almost double the price than what it would cost you when you would get it directly from an AD. Yacht-Master 37 rhodium dial, on the other hand, is only, and please keep in mind that I know how weird it says that I say only, 7 to 10% more expensive on the secondary market. Given the Rolex situation with sport seal models, or as Rolex likes to say, professional models, this really is something rather unusual. I mean, this is basically a slightly changed Submariner. Shouldn't it be more popular then, or at least more expensive? Well, I mean, yes and no, but here's why. To try and find an answer to that question, we have to take a look at the three main issues or problems of the Yacht-Master, in which the last one is also the biggest potential pitfall. The first 2 points here were brought up by Oisins from the Times Watch channel, which I will link for you down below, which I found really good and wanted to share with you in this video too. Number one is the fact that it seems like Rolex doesn't want to push the Yacht-Master in the first place. You can go onto the Rolex website and see for yourself here. I mean, not only do you have to scroll down to get to the Yacht-Master section, but the image to represent it is actually that of a Yacht-Master 2, which is definitely not the top seller, and design-wise a watch that puts even a lot of the hardcore Rolex fans off. So no wonder no one's really clicking on that. They also rarely feature it on their social media accounts. The latest picture of a Yacht-Master that I could find was from December 2019, and it's also not included in their highlight reel on Instagram, for example. Secondly, there is the name and its implication. Another point Oisins brought up, which I think is really important. Yacht-Master just screams posh and expensive to me. I mean, obviously, but not in a good way, to be honest. I would argue most people associate yachts with super snobby rich people getting drunk on champagne and getting heavy sunburn lying on their yachts at the coast of Monaco. And I mean, there's definitely jealousy speaking out of me, but no matter the reason, there still isn't much that I can identify with when hearing the word Yacht-Master. That being said, I totally understand how this very well might be Rolex intention after all. Their dream Yacht-Master customer definitely does not look and live like I do. Thirdly, the biggest problem of the Yacht-Master is also its biggest strength, but also a pitfall I feel some might not be aware of, since it allegedly started out as a Submariner revamp, but then got turned into its own line. You can obviously see and feel the resemblance to its deep diving sister, but that being said, it's either too close or too different for a lot of people, and I think that's why it's a pass for so many, which explains the sleeper situation in a way. But that's also where I feel many people might make a huge mistake. Those who are looking for a sub or a classic Rolex diver in general look for that very distinct Rolex diver look, and though they do have a lot in common, the Yacht-Master still is very much a different watch. So those who get frustrated with the Submariner circus might consider a Yacht-Master due to the similarities, but then get really unhappy because those two feel like worlds apart on your wrist, and then they will just sell it shortly after. Perhaps I'm reading way too much into this, and at the end of the day, the Yacht-Master just isn't as popular because it isn't a Submariner, and that's it. But I mean, where would be the fun in that? Either way, I can't help but feel that this is one of the few Rolex watches that do feel honest. The Rolex Yacht-Master never pretended to be a tool watch. It stepped onto the world stage in a yellow gold outfit, and I mean, I have yet to meet a person who wore their Submariner on an actual deep dive let's say how it is. Luxury watches like that, you know, like the Submariners, the Seamasters or Navitimer are useful but practical jewelry. That doesn't mean that we cannot appreciate the craftsmanship of watchmaking behind it. I just think it's okay to accept that. I don't know, perhaps that's another reason why the Yacht-Master isn't as popular, because this would not pass as a pretend tool watch. And that's why I love it so much. It's honest, it's flashy, it's cool, and it looks freaking amazing on my small wrist. But what are your thoughts on the Yacht-Master? Do you agree with the sleeper status, or do you think it is justified that way? As always, let me know what you think in the comments down below. And that's it for today's video. Again, a big thank you to CHRONEXT for letting me borrow these two watches for this video. If you have enjoyed this, you can give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more videos like that, you can subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!